Assalamu alaikum, friends, and welcome to a Muslim Mum podcast. Assalamu alaikum, it's Farhat Amin here, your host. So today's podcast, I am going to split it up into three parts. I realized that I didn't introduce myself in my last podcast, and some of you don't know who I am from anyone. So I thought part one of this podcast is I will just introduce myself. Part two, I want to look at the types of mothers that exist and how we end up defining ourselves or labeling ourselves and other mums. I found that quite interesting to think about this week. And for the final part, I want to share a hadith with you. And it's a hadith that has completely changed my life. And I'm not exaggerating. And I want to share it. And it changed my life in an amazing way. So I'm going to share that with you at the end of this podcast. So, who is Farhat Amin, which is me? I am a mum. I live in the UK, and my eldest child is now 20. So, I have had a lot of experience parenting. I definitely don't think I have all the answers. I have made so many mistakes. I could write a book about the amount of mistakes I have made as a parent, but I'd like to think I've learnt from them. And what's been really nice is I have some really good role models in my life. You know, my mum, I've got my sisters, my sister-in-laws, friends of mine who they have all shaped me as a parent. And I think one of the reasons I started doing this podcast is I didn't find much online for Muslim mums. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. And I just thought it would be nice to share my experiences and advice with yourselves, and help each other to grow as parents and improve. And so that's what I do. I have three children and two boys and a girl. Now, one of my children, he passed away recently, but I still, he's with Allah now. And that also has helped me as a parent as well. It's really made me reevaluate how I view my children and how I just view the blessing of having children and the rewards that are there for us as mums. So that's me. And I used to be a high school English teacher. I gave up working at some point. I'm sure I will do a podcast about that. But so, as far as I used to teach a lot of kids, I still do teach from home, which is nice. So, it's interesting. I've met a lot of parents and seen what their views were. And then the other thing I started to then do once I left teaching full time was I'd started up my own company. It was called the Muslim Sticker Company. And what it is, I used a lot of the ideas I had about parenting, and I've created a lot of parenting resources specifically for Muslim parents because, again, I couldn't find any when my kids were young. And but recently, this year, I changed the name of my company to farhatamin.com because I was trying to change I was writing more books and doing courses as well. So that's what I do. I do my business, I do some teaching, I take care of my home, and now I've started doing this podcast, which I really enjoy, and I hope, and the whole purpose, inshallah, is to help other Muslim mums. If you can learn anything from what I say, I will be so happy. And the fact that I can do this all from home I thank Allah for that every day, and it is such a blessing. The other thing I think I'm going to be including in this, I will be including this podcast, is as a Muslim businesswoman, there are quite specific issues we face and that I faced. And I'd like to, sometimes I'm going to talk about that as well. And I'll, again, learn from my experiences and my mistakes. But I know there are so many Muslim women who would love to work from home or who are, and they've got some really great ideas, and they would just like to, have some advice from someone. So, that's me. Okay, that's part one finished. Have you noticed how we like to label ourselves and we like to label other mums? I don't know if this is a mum or woman thing, but when we'll be talking about a friend, or we're just speaking about or thinking about our own selves as parents, we'll say, "Oh, I'm such a rubbish mum," or that mum, she's so organized. She always cooks her meal. She doesn't buy takeaway. Her kids pack lunches are so amazing. It's we really like to, I find, either put ourselves down a lot and look at other mums and think that, wow, they're doing such an amazing job. And I know I do that. Well, actually, I'm going to be honest, I used to do that, because, shall I tell you, I think I would hear, you hear our mums when we were growing up, we would hear constant comparisons. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it would happen a lot. As children, we were compared um, to how clever someone else was, or how well they were doing at school, or their looks. And it's something we kind of, because we hear it a lot, we end up doing it as well. And I think, nowadays it happens even more. I'm going to give you, just think of Instagram. When you are looking at your feed, whether it's, there's issues about comparing the way we look to other women, but that's something else. If you see pictures of other, it's not, and I'm not talking about celebrities, it's really just family members and friends, and people will post up. What do people post up on Instagram? It's always the happy, nice photo. So I went on a picnic, we went out to dinner, photos of, the newborn babies, and it's nice seeing all those things. But it's interesting. I was speaking to someone, a family member, and they were saying how they were away from their family. They'd moved away, and so now they weren't with their immediate family. And she was saying that when she looked at the photos, it would make her very sad, because it just seemed like everyone else was having this perfect life where they're having their children and they're going out to dinner as a family, to restaurants, and they're going on holiday. And, I understand why people want to share those happy feelings and memories, but what can happen to us as we see them if we are not having such a great time, if we are not cooking amazing meals for our family, if we are not losing weight, if we are not, if we haven't got children when we would like to have children, it has quite a negative effect on our mental health, I think. And then you've got the issue with celebrities and people are trying to sell you things, because let's be honest, when celebrities are on Instagram, and companies are, when they get these influencers, I can't stand that word, these Instagram influencers, they are literally, they say that they do what it says on the tin. They are trying to influence us, but it's to buy something. And so we have to think about, if, are we comparing ourselves as mums to other people, and is that actually a good thing for us? Because as we know, and we all know this, there's no such thing as a perfect mum who, bakes cakes and her house is clean and she looks amazing and her home decor is just the best. That's just that's the picture, that's the sales pitch. And so if we me and you, if we are looking at those things and it's making us unhappy, I think, I think we should stop looking at them really, and we need to stop comparing ourselves to other mums. Um, I was listening to something on the radio, and it was talking about how it was talking about new mums actually, how now it's quite bad for them. It was on, I think it was Women's Hour on BBC, and they spoke to a bunch of new mums, and they were saying how, when you have your little baby and there's certain milestones. So let's say the first time they smile, or the first time they roll over, or when do they start sleeping through the night, or with teething, when does the first tooth come out, all those little things we know about. And what these mums were saying was that they were feeling quite insecure because their friends were posting when their child, each milestone they were doing. And then now their child isn't achieving those milestones. So they said they began to lie, and they would say, oh, yeah, my child's doing this as well, just to keep up with the other mums. And I thought, when my kids were young, they're okay, that didn't exist, and I didn't have that stress. I would have you would talk to your sisters and your the other people you knew who had little babies, and it would just be a general thing. You'd think, oh, okay, your kid's doing that, and then you'd think, right, okay, so fine. There's no picture evidence of it. I don't need to look at it, and you have the conversation, you forget about it. But it was making those mums really miserable, and they were saying it's like it's a competition. And but we know that just gets worse, doesn't it? When you go down that road of comparing yourself as a mother and your abilities to, superficially compare yourself, and so you start doing it when they go to school, that whose child is reading first, who does better in the tests, which school, does your kid go to, a private school? Do they get into a grammar school? And it's what I'm saying is it's not worth it. Don't you can only be the best mum in your circumstance, with your husband, or maybe you're a single mum, or maybe, your child's a bit, we all know Allah's made everyone unique. So how much you can do, what someone is telling you, I'm not kidding. Half the time, I don't believe sometimes what other mums are saying, as far as how well their children are doing. I remember being told about how well someone's kid did in their GCSEs. My daughter did her GCSEs at the same time, and I thought, okay, that's really nice. That well done, good for your daughter. But I thought, I'm happy my daughter kept all her fasts, and because Ramadan, it was fasting. And I thought, okay, she may not have done as well, but alhamdulillah, she kept all her fasts. That meant more. Now I've realized that meant more than her doing well in her GCSEs. And I thought, why am I going to make myself so stressed out and upset about comparing my mummy skills to someone else's? I don't know what her marriage is like. I don't know what her financial situation is like. And so why am I even worrying about that? But the problem we have is people, and the other problem we've got is people label us. They'll make judgments on our sorry, on our mothering. I don't know if that's even a word. Our abilities as a mother, and from my experience, when my kids, especially you do this with your young first child, you want them to be so clever, you want them to be always looking great, you want them to. It's ridiculous how much pressure we can end up putting on our first child, but it's because we think, we don't have the experience, and that's fine. So me and you will make mistakes. Again, that is fine. And it's I just think things have got quite difficult for mums now. But I always do believe, if we think, if we realize if something is, stressing us out so much and not giving us peace of mind, like like I'm going to give you some advice. If there are friends, if you've got mum friends who, when you talk to them, they, when you leave their company, you don't feel happier, you don't feel calm, you don't feel peaceful. I think you should drop them. You should drop those friends. I say that to a lot of people. It's better to have a few well selected, good friends who are a good influence in your life. And when I say good influence, also they're talking some Islamic sense to you. They're not just chattering nonsense. It's better to have a few of those good friends who will help you develop as a Muslim mum and to give you good advice than having a whole crowd of friends or being popular. That's something I've learned. I do just have a few good friends now who, if I want advice, I know that it's when I meet them, they're not gonna just sit there and backbite with me and gossip with me, just to make me feel good or tell me how great I am. That's not a good friend. We should be very selective because, it's true. They say this. I can't remember where I read this, but the friends you make whilst you are raising your children, they are the friends who you stay with for longest. And that's true for me. I know the mums who I got to know when my children were little, that I'm still friends with them. But then sometimes we can, just because we've known people for a long time, we can think, I need to stay in touch with them. But what I'm saying to you, if they're not a good Islamic influence in your life, then you need to drop them, like a sack of potatoes, and it'll do you the world of good. So, so don't label yourself. Don't be so. You don't have to be this amazing mum who can juggle, everything, and everything should always look amazing. And I think it's double difficult for, I think, if you're a working mum, because you are doing. I've been there and done that. And when you are you've got all your work chores, and then you've got to you come home and you've got do your kids, you've got to do the home. It's very, that's really hard. And then on top of it, we'll talk about this another time, but when you're running around, taking your kids to tuition, taking them to clubs, you're just running yourself ragged. And why? You need to ask yourself why. Why am I doing that? Am I trying? And if it's because you are comparing yourself to what other mums are doing. I remember there was a time when I did that. I'd take my children to swimming, they go to Quran class, they'd go to Arabic tuition, they were going to Islamic school, and I was just a taxi driver. And I really was. And I was working at Islamic school as well at that time. And part of the reason why I was doing that was because other mums were sending their children to clubs and doing all these different activities. And I thought, oh my God, I have to do this as well. But you don't. Believe me, you really don't. Okay, so please, sisters, mums, stop comparing yourself to other mums. In first episode, I talked about those 2 hadith about motherhood. I think we'll talk more about in another episode, inshallah, about what is it that Allah expects from us as mothers, and I think I know I need to remind myself, and we should just stick to that, and inshallah, we will be so much happier. In each podcast, I want to share some kind of Islamic guidance, whether it's a hadith or ayah, that I have really benefited from. So today, in today's episode, I mentioned hadith, didn't I? That has really changed my life. And what it was, 2 people told me about this hadith. It was a friend. She's really nice. I was saying about having good people in your life. she's one of them. Her WhatsApp messages, I really like seeing them. And the other person who sent it to me was my niece. So it just shows you can get wisdom from people who are younger than you. So now let me narrate the hadith. Now, Abu Dawood and An-Nasai narrated from Jabir ibn Abdullah that the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, Friday is 12 hours in which there is no Muslim who asks Allah for something, but He will give it to him. So seek the last hour after Asr. And that hadith is classified as Sahih. So let me repeat the last bit. Friday is 12 hours in which there is no Muslim who asks Allah for something, but He will give it to him. So seek the last hour after Asr. So after I read that, I've been doing this for 2 weeks now. The hour, so Asr time will start, and 1 hour before Asr ends, so before Maghrib time, you should sit down. That's what I would sit down. I decided I wanted to read Surah Yasin, and then I will sit and I will do dua to Allah sincerely. And believe me, some of the duas that I asked was they've been answered. I was having, I've had quite a difficult few months, and this last week actually was quite hard. Alhamdulillah, we all have ups and downs. But I asked Allah to help me with an issue problem I was having, and alhamdulillah, it has gone away. And as long as, there's other, if you Google this hadith and there's more, you can read the detailed explanation of it. But, if you ask Allah for something good, Allah will give it to you. And you do have to have sincere belief that in this hadith and the promise that Allah gives us. So any troubles that you are having in your life, dear sisters, and I really do mean this, you should sincerely ask Allah to help you. And whatever I think, we all need to pour our hearts out to Allah, because ultimately it's only Allah that can help us. We can ask other people, it may be through another person that Allah gives us that help. But when you ask Allah, when you sincerely ask Allah for help, and Allah does listen, and if we can't think the dua will be answered immediately, it may be in the future. Allah may decide He will give us something better. But the first step is to ask Allah and trust in Allah. So please share that hadith with us. I've been sharing it with everyone, and so I thought I had to share it with you guys. And inshallah, that's the hadith for this podcast. So inshallah, if you want to listen to previous episodes, you can go to www.farhatamin.com and you can listen to previous episodes. And if you want to get in touch, you can email me, info@farhatamin.com. I'd love to hear what you think of this podcast. If there's any topics, that you'd like me to cover, inshallah, I'm open to suggestions. So until next time, take care, and let's remember each other in our duas.